Hey y'all, it's Amanda. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about general historical fiction book recommendations. Like a general historical fiction recommendations video, very short. Today we're going to talk about some of the ones that I am most excited about. I did a graphic recently on Instagram, and this is kind of like part of a series of book recommendations that I'm trying to just do quickly for you guys. I'm long-winded, you know, but hey, here we are, and just chat about some books that are not really historical romance, but just true historical fiction. I know a lot of you all enjoy historical fiction, so yeah, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. The first book on my list is The Italian Ballerina by Kristy Cambron. I really love this book. I give this 4 stars. What an ending. The first half took me a little bit to get through, but just a great story. These people had a common goal to just keep this girl safe, and I love that. This is dual timeline, but it really kind of had a third timeline in there as well. This is a Christian historical World War II book set in Rome, and 1943 and in present day. And we follow 3 different people, a British ballerina named Julia, and she is stranded and forced basically to take refuge in this hospital on Tiber Island, and she ends up risking everything for the Italian Jewish people. Is doing everything to rescue Italian Jewish people from the Holocaust during this time. She's working at the hospital, posing as a nurse, but she's really a ballerina. And so, yeah, she's trying to make the Germans realize, or she's trying to make the Germans believe in the fake Syndrome K, and that was a real thing, that disease. It's a real fake disease, I'll say, during that time that they used to try to save Jewish people from the Germans during that time. And so we see her, and then one day this young girl who dreams of being a ballerina, she just shows up at her door, and Julia, and some other people show up with her, and they are all determined to reunite this young dancer to her family. Then we're following Private Courtney Coleman, and he's a medic during the war, and we see his journey in 1943 and 1941, and it starts off with him trying to escape these German soldiers with this young girl, and very just high energy right off the bat, honestly. Like, a lot of action happened at the very beginning of this. We're jumping back and forth in these timelines, and we see this little Jewish girl trying to be kept safe by Court and his friend AJ, and so they end up meeting Julia along the way, and everything kind of goes on from there. So we see the timeline back and forth quite a bit, and that is the reason I gave it 4 stars, because the timeline was a little bit confusing at first, but once I kind of was tracking with it, I was good. It all made sense. And so, like I said, they all had this common goal to just keep this young girl safe, get her back to her family, and it's just wow. And then we have this present day timeline, okay? And we follow Mateo and Delaney. And Mateo contacts Delaney to let her know that, hey, her late grandfather had some items that belonged to his grandmother. And so they would like to meet up in Italy. And, you know, he's like, hey, I'll fly you out here so we can get this stuff. There was like a suitcase or something, I want to say. Sorry if I'm wrong on that. I'm pretty sure there was. And things kind of going from there. She's like, I don't really know about this guy. Is he telling the truth? And she realizes, yes, he is. And so they start piecing everything together about their grandparents' past. I really liked that part. That was very interesting to see how the story all came together. If you like a World War II storyline, I know a lot of it's overdone, but the ending of this was very emotional. I cried. Didn't expect it to end the way it did. I cried. That's all I can say. So if you like emotional World War II stories, pick this up. Okay, that's all I can say. Then we have Beneath the Bending Skies by Jane Kirkpatrick. I love this cover. Read this last year. It was one of my favorite books of the year last year. I gave this 5 stars. It's my first Jane Kirkpatrick story I'd ever read. This is a Christian historical fiction, and wow. I mean, it had a little bit of a romance in it, but not really. The main storyline in this was so interesting. It's atmospheric. It's going to captivate you from the first page. You know, this is based on a true person in history, like a real person in history. And Jane Kirkpatrick, I think, is known for that from what people have told me. But this is about a true pioneer from the 1800s named Mary Catherine Molly Sheehan Ronan. I had to look because my mind. But she was born in 1852 and died in 1940. Real person in history. And this is told in first person. Jane does such a great job bringing Molly's story to life. And it's just fascinating. It was fascinating to me. Like, if you like history, this is a good one to go with. I think that if you like prairie settings, the gold rush time period, details surrounding Native American culture, and loving just learning about a notable woman in history, this is it. This is definitely for you, okay? So we start in this book with Molly when she was 6 years old, and that was around 1858, and her mother passes away, and Molly and her father they moved to Colorado, and her dad leaves for a while, and you're like, where is her dad? He leaves her with another family, and he ends up coming back, but he has a new wife and child named Anne and Kate. And so Anne is a very kind and gentle woman. She's like the perfect stepmom, honestly. And so Molly grows to really love her and calls her Ma Ann. And so just as they start to settle down as a family, her dad picks up again and leaves. He's like in financial mess, basically. And so they end up going to Montana. They're dealing with some difficult times. Her father is following work like during the gold rush. I can't talk during that period. So they continue to move multiple times. And Molly is finding true love, though, in Peter Ronan. Now, I know this has a love story in it, but to me, that wasn't the plot. You know, like, to me, this was all about her and her life. And, you know, we do see a little bit of romance again, but it's not the primary point of the story. Like, it says historical fiction on the back. It's not even classified here as historical romance. So if you don't like romance in books, I still think you're going to enjoy this, because it's just mostly about her and her life. But her father pretty much disapproves of this marriage, you know, says, hey, you're too young to marry him, gotta wait, all this. So several years go by, and Molly ultimately defies her father's wishes and realizes that the command to honor thy father truly has its limits. And I think it says that even in the synopsis. Molly's father pretty much lives in this fairy tale that she's going to be with him forever. Something about Molly, he doesn't want to let her go. And so, you know, she really found her courage to stand up for herself and go her own way as an adult. The remaining half of this book focuses on Molly and Peter and their life together as husband and wife, and they start a family together in the Flathead Indian Reservation in Montana in the late 1800s. And so, yeah, this is just a very character-driven story, engaging with history and culture, and I love the different cultural backgrounds that we see in this and how God really moved in this family with everything they had went through. So, yeah, Molly was my favorite character because obviously it's all about her, but what am I saying? But she just embodied such an inspiration to young women and in the community. Like, she showed the love of God to others and truly lived that in her life. And she didn't back down from what she believed in. Very strong-willed Christian woman without being feminist, okay? Because I know that sometimes can happen. You know, you feel like this is a bit feminist leaning. That definitely not in this, okay? I think we can learn from her in so many ways in this book. She was a teacher, a mother, a wife, and just a beautiful daughter and friend, and I highly recommend this. I can't even say enough. I think I have a whole video review dedicated to this. I will link it below. That was back when I was doing like independent video reviews. I kind of quit doing that. It's just too much to keep up with, but highly recommend you all. I'm telling y'all, it's so good. I need to read more Jane's books. I know I've got a couple on my list. What I want to talk about is The Circus Train by Amita Parikh. And I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong. You already know me and my names, but hey, that's the best way I can say it. But this is a World War II historical fiction. It's a secular story, but it's clean, and it has disability representation. Our main girl is in a wheelchair with polio, and this has strong family element in this story, and just a little bit hint of romance. I'm giving this 5 stars. I read this recently, so you all have maybe seen me talk about this. I did a vlog, I want to say. I can't remember. But this is very surprising. This is when I was doing my book of the month books, and this is the only one I found that was a hidden gem for me. It was very just a breathtaking read, honestly. I was immersed completely from the very beginning of this. You know, I had so many DNFs, and then picking this up was just, wow, amazing. And so this is all about our main girl, Lena, and I love that name because that was my grandmother's name. So hey, but Lena, she was a young girl who her dad is this circus illusionist, and I don't remember a ton about the circus in this, I guess, like but the parts that are in this were awesome. Like, it was just so immersive. So her dad's name's Theo, and she is just really smart. She loves the world. She wants to go out in the world. She loves science and medicine, but her dad pretty much keeps her hidden and like protective away from everybody. Like, no, we can't do this. He's overprotective. He limits her activities. You know, she is disabled and she's unable to walk. She's in a wheelchair from polio. And so things take this big turn when they rescue this guy, Alexander, and he's a Jewish orphan with many secrets. And Alexander and Lena form a friendship and a small romance over the years that they're together. Now, the romance is a very small part of this. Again, I would say if you are not a person who loves romance, it's still, like, that's not the point of the story, right? It's in here, but very, very light. See them together, like, from being young and growing up, and he's training under her dad and to be like an illusionist apprentice in the circus. And so problems start to erupt, though, when World War II kind of begins and secrets start to get revealed. People are separated and doubts must be confronted really fast. You don't have no idea what's going to happen next. Like, I was on the edge of my seat with a lot of this, and, you know, we just had this long span of time in this book. I think it was from the 1930s through the 1950s. And I love the growth the characters had in this, and it had just this really nice element of the circus being like a moving theme throughout the story while they were traveling, but still having that historical element from what they were going through with the war and the sicknesses and the separation. And if you like a historical fiction that has a very strong female lead who perseveres, disability representation, and a small side romance plot, the strong family element here, the circus elements, it's just a very unique story, you guys. Like, you know, as far as trigger warnings, I don't really have much content. I mean, there was some mentions of parents dying and some, like, wartime death and scenes, but they weren't very graphic in my opinion. We do see some concentration camp stuff that here a little bit, but again, it was not graphic in my mind personally, but I want to mention that. So yeah, I highly recommend this. Just a really hidden gem in the secular book world, because sometimes you just can't, it's hard to find that, and when I find it, I gotta let y'all know. Next book in the list, The Long March Home by Marcus Brotherton and Tosca Lee. This is my first book by both of these authors, and when I tell you the emotions that I had in this, the tears, the just renewed appreciation that I had for the young American men who went through the Bataan Death March that I didn't know anything about, mind you, in the Philippines. Wow, that's all I can say. You know, not many people know what happened to these young men, and this story just really brought their story to life. I talked extensively about this on my channel several times, and, you know, I had such an appreciation for them, and, you know, I think everybody needs to read this, like I truly did. There is, you know, if you're someone who has a hard time with graphic war scenes, this one did have the graphic war scenes and what they went through, but I can promise you it was not to the extent of what really happened. And that should tell you something. And so to me, you know, it's just a beautiful story of these friends who go on this journey of war, and, you know, you don't even know if they're going to make it back. We have Billy, Hank, and Jimmy, and, you know, this is told from Jimmy's main point of view. We see his life leading up to the attack on Pearl Harbor, which I appreciated those scenes, you know, before the war. It was great to see, like, them together just in every normal day life, you know, and that really broke it up, because it is awful heavy. It's a heavy book. It's an emotional book. Go into that knowing this, but it's one that you will appreciate and will not forget. Characters were just so real, and this story is raw. I mean, it's gonna be heart-wrenching journey. You know, you're just praying that these men make it home. What's gonna happen in the end? And you know, I was just so utterly moved by this. Yeah, I don't read a whole lot of general World War II fiction, and, you know, this is easily top 10 of 2023, y'all. It really is. You know, my heart was broken and restored within this book, honestly. You know, we have this true brotherhood that's depicted in here of, like, these real men, and you even gave the ultimate sacrifice in fighting for our country, and it just, yeah, I highly recommend this. That's all I can say. If you like these type of books, good historical World War II fiction that's going to leave you with a high emotional impact, this is for you. As far as content warnings, like I said, we do have some graphic war scenes, prisoner torture, the horrors of war, and some wartime drinking, and very minimal language. So, but yeah, it's such a great story, and one I will never forget. Next book on my list is The Blackout Book Club by Amy Lynn Green. I've got several of her books on my shelves. I know she has another one coming out next year. I need to know. This book, wow. First Amy Lynn Green, definitely not my last. I gave it 5 stars, and one of the quotes I had is, "For I have found that books make fine friends, but fellow readers even better." So, you know, I mean, just like when you read this book, it's like It obviously has that bookish vibe, right? When you see the cover, we know the girls are here, there's a book club, something's gonna go on. But this is a World War II era. It released last year in November, and this was set in World War II time period. It released last year, and it's just a beautiful multi-character driven story filled with history, friendship, family, the whole 9 yards, honey. It's perfect for book lovers too. It really shows us what it was like to live during World War II with all the blackouts that were going on, how people were worrying about their loved ones, and they were going off to war, the struggles of, the struggles that it put on marriages and families, financial struggles, and so much more there. In this story, we primarily follow 4 women, their personal stories, and how they're all connected together. So, this starts off with Avis Montgomery, and she's not really a reader, but, she has the library owner that comes up to her, Louise, and decides to close the library. And, she ends up starting a Blackout book club, they call it, to help the war effort. She kind of makes it up on the fly. She's like, oh, no, we can't do this because I'm starting this new book club, the Blackout book club. And so the result of this is a group of people coming together, each with their own challenges, struggles, and worries, and just creating these bonds that's going to last a lifetime. The characters in this really live off the page here. It does have a lot of back and forth, but I could keep up with them. They were very different and unique in each point of view. I was just very invested in each individual story. Avis and her husband, Russell, they are struggling in their marriage. Then we have Louise, who is dealing with her painful past that nobody else knows about. Then we have Martina, and she's trying to hide from her unstable husband. That ain't good. And then and she's just trying to create this new life for her children. And then we have Jenny, and she has a broken family, and she's trying to figure out what to do next. And so, yeah, there's just so many other side characters in this too that make it like a great story. The book club was fun because you would have notes from the book club that I thought was cool. I'm trying to find if we have that anywhere, if I can find it. Yeah, so it would be notes from the Blackout book club. See if you can see it. So I thought that was cool, how they did that, and just how they would say taken by Avis Montgomery, head librarian and book club secretary, members in attendance, book discussion, really neat. I had a great laugh, honestly, in some of those parts I remember, so those were great. Faith content, I don't think this had a ton, but it's still a great story. Clean, the ending was very emotional, and I'm really glad that I read this. I think the audiobook is amazing with the way that it had the different perspectives, so I highly recommend that. And if you like a good historical fiction with a bonus bookish feel, this is it. Final book on my list is Long Way Home by Lynn Austin. I read this last year. This is a beautiful Christian historical fiction. Yeah, I know I have a lot of World War II here, but this is another World War II one. There's no romance at all in this, really. This is a dual timeline story where I felt like Lynn Austin really tied these characters together very well. We followed Peggy, and she cannot wait for her best friend Jimmy to come back from war. But unfortunately, when Jimmy returns, he is suffering from severe PTSD, and he was a medic in the war, and he's returned a completely changed man. So we see that with the struggles with his parents, and I think he is in a hospital, the VA hospital, and he is forced to go through some very horrible psychiatric treatments to, quote, bring him back in his depression. It was not good treatments. Peggy is just devastated by this. She is the definition of a true best friend. I've forgotten a lot about her. She really was a great best friend for Jimmy. There was no romance in there at all. She just truly wants to figure out what happened to him during his war experience and to bring him back. And she's concerned about the treatments that's going on in the hospital. It's a whole thing. She's just the ultimate friend, that's all I can say. But she's kind of piecing everything together for Jimmy, and she ends up contacting his old war friends to come visit him. He had some suicide attempts in this, Jimmy did. So, that's a trigger as well. But, she will do anything for his friends to come and just to see him. And there is one friend, Joe, who kind of sticks around for a while, and she soon starts to help him as well with his problems. And so, yeah, Peggy, she was just a great person who would help anyone that she encountered. It's crazy because she went through so much in her own life. She was bullied. She lost her mother at a young age. And her life story was very impactful, and I loved her so much. And then we have this other point of view of Gisela, and you're like trying to figure out how is Gisela tied to Jimmy, and so to see how that weaved together was wonderful. Very interesting. I was like, I need to know all about this. Like, I remember I was hooked in this. Like, I read it really fast. And we see her and her family in World War II trying to flee Germany for safety on this passenger ship to Cuba. And Peggy had found like a picture of Gisela and started trying to piece all that together. We saw what the Jewish people endured during that time period. It was horrifying. This story truly honors our veterans and the Jewish people for what they had to endure. So content-wise, we do have some concentration camp brutality, the Jewish people on their journey to a better life. And they were being turned away by so many. And Ella was just this amazing character also to look up to. I just really appreciate all the details that Lynn Austin put in here about World War II. I learned a lot about the war. I think this was one of the first World War II books I had actually picked up. So it helped me to just remember all of that. And the faith content in this was very important. I'm gonna look at my notes here. I said, I love how she completely centered God in her story, his word. Some of the themes and scriptures reference include Romans 8:38-39, nothing can separate us from God's love, Job's story regarding his suffering, and Jesus' ultimate sacrifice on the cross for us. So yeah, this was just a very impactful read that I highly recommend with some great faith content. And that's it. So, long-winded again. It says I've been filming for 30 minutes. I know I gotta cut some stuff out. Maybe I can get this down to 20. We'll see. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have read these books, if you have any other general historical fiction books, book recommendations that you want to leave down below for other people to check out. Let's talk in the comments as usual. I love y'all so much, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye, y'all.